I told Sally she was wearing like a pretty good female blue collar sweatshirt today, and she's like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "It's like Cat, the construction company." She's like, "Oh, I thought it was just for cats." Like,
Well, maybe it is. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe it's just for cats. You could be wrong. It doesn't say Cat Construction Company.
yeah, no, yeah, it's like a Nike swoosh symbol. It's just a check mark. It's not a Nike swoosh symbol. People are
Yeah.
just letting you know that they're there. This is a shirt.
It's about cats. It's all about cats.
So what are we talking about today, Sally?
Well, the other day I told you I was kind of looking for alternatives and different platforms for luxury goods. And I know there's the Real, and I had something I was going to send to the Real, and man, it just seemed like a lot of hassle, and there was a lot of fees for it. And so you mentioned that you knew of some happenings in the news on other platforms.
Ooh, buddy, big stuff. And I should say happenings, but I think what actually happened recently is maybe the acquisition went through. But back in March, there was an acquisition by one company, Vestiaire Collective, which is a French, what'd you say that, resale company, purchasing Tradesy, which is a US based resale company. It's relatively significant in the weird world of reselling because both of them were kind of targeting the same market, and the merger definitely allows them to grow together. But it's it's strange because no one thinks of either of these two things before the Real, but like they're kind of working at the same level when combined together.
Well, I went ahead and I thought, okay, well, you mentioned Vestiaire Collections.
Collective.
Okay, Vestiaire, and I'll put a note up about it. So I went to them and it was really interesting. I was looking, I said sweaters. Okay, sweaters. And there are some that ship from the United States and some that don't ship from the United States. And then you have an option of either paying $15 and having it authenticated, or not paying $15 and having it not having it authenticated. And I thought, well, that was interesting because part of the Real that bothered me was the amount of fees that they took. And it was for, I'm sure, authentication and the fact that I had to ship my stuff to them. So in this case, they are just, it sounds like Vestiaire is just an intermediate step, an intermediary between you and the buyer, much like eBay.
Yeah, so the major difference between, so Tradesy and Vestiaire Collective are merging. They're basically the same site. I think Vestiaire Collective's a little bit more robust because they have this $15 thing that I'm pretty sure Tradesy didn't have. But starting in early 2023, if you go to tradesy.com, it's just going to send you to Vestiaire Collective. If we're looking at users, Vestiaire Collective had 16 million before the merger, and Tradesy had 7. So when they're merged together, they have 23 million users. The Real in comparison right now has 25 million users. So they're pretty much equivalent.
Did you look at the costs? Did you look at the fees for them? Are they similar?
So Tradesy and Vestiaire Collect, so they're totally different platforms. But I mean, those two, Tradesy and Vestiaire Collective, are both 20% around. So it's very similar to Poshmark, but the difference between the Real and Vestiaire Collective / Tradesy combination, and it's just going to be known as Vestiaire. So Tradesy is just going by the wayside. The name's not being kept. Is that the Real offers the service of everything coming to them. They authenticate it, they store it, they ship it out. So they deal with all the customer service. Whereas with Vestiaire Collective, it's much more like eBay or Poshmark, where the seller makes all their own listings, does all the own work, ships it out, and then the buyer has that opportunity to get it authenticated, or they can just trust the seller.
Thomas, I seem to remember when I was looking at the Real that it was something like 40% that they took.
So it's very dependent on, oh no, it's much higher than that most of the time. Oh. It's dependent on where it sells. So if you're grouped, depending on how much you sell, you then get grouped into a different level for if it sells above $195. Anything below $195, which is basically most clothing that you'd sell there, you start getting 40 or 50% on the high end. Like, and
The buyer, I as a
the
seller.
seller
Oh,
would end up
wow.
getting 40 or 50% of the final sale price, which is not very good, because
Wow.
I can tell you from experience, there's a lot of brands that people view as really good, like Giorgio Armani, that you'll send a pair of pants in there. They will price a pair of pants that's sold. They have like a $1,200 price tag on them at about $100. They won't sell for months and months. They'll get discounted. They'll then sell for $30 or $40, and you will get 40. I will get 40% of that. Many other people would get 20 or 30, which means that on a pair of pants that at the store would sell for $1,200, if I purchased them for anything more than $15, $15 or $20, I would be losing money.
Well, Thomas, I thought of Real as a place to, if I'm afraid to list something, like, I picked up a Prada jacket at the bins, and you looked at it and you said, yeah, this is a real Prada jacket. And I said, I'm still scared to sell it. And you said, well, do the Real. So I looked at the Real. I still haven't listed it, but now I think I have an alternative. I could send it to the Real and wind up, if it would sell for $150, I might wind up with $40 of, I don't know, something like that.
Yep, exactly. $50 to $70.
Now it sounds like I could go through this new combination and list it there, pay $15 to have it authenticated, which I would, and then have the price reflect that it is an authenticated Prada jacket, and I don't have to worry about Veros from eBay. And I don't have to worry about losing 60% of it to Real. Is that reasonable?
So this brings up the whole strategy of where to sell specific items. And the go-to thought process for all of our group is just, if it's a fancy brand, send it to the Real. That way you won't have to deal with it. On eBay, you won't have to deal with returns, you won't deal with all that stuff, and they'll deal with everything. In my mind, the reality is that if you send a nice item to them, you're basically getting almost nothing for it unless it's a truly exceptional item. There's other avenues to sell it on that are much less risky when it comes to Veros than eBay. And the major ones that come to mind are Poshmark and Mercari, because you can sell things on, you can sell fakes on there and they're not going to come after you, which means that you can also sell totally authentic goods and they're not going to come after you, because number one, the platforms are so small, and number two, you'd actually be selling real authentic goods. This is just another opportunity, another avenue to sell your goods on.
But Thomas, if I
what?
wanted to sell through Poshmark, for example, do I have an option of having it authenticated? Because I think, there's so many fakes out that if I would want to sell it through a platform that I could authenticate it.
So Poshmark authenticates things just like eBay does right now at a certain price point. I think it's $400 or $500 for jewelry or bags. Then they'll send it to authentication. And then if it gets authenticated, good, then it goes through, doesn't blah, blah, blah. It's similar to the sneakers thing, but there's a higher threshold than the $100 that it is on eBay.
So where shall I sell my Prada jacket?
So this is the question, right? With all of these options and this merging.
Thomas, tell me where to sell my damn Prada jacket.
I still say sell your Prada jacket on eBay, because your Prada jacket, number one, is real. You already have that whole thing set up. You won't have to check other platforms and deal with other selling things. But if you have a whole bunch of Prada jackets and you know that they're, and you know that, and you, well, I mean, if you have a bunch of Prada jackets and you know that they're all real, the answer is, do I send them? Okay. If you send something,
you're for a lack of words. That's very strange for
no,
you.
No. I have so many words. The more I use the Real, the more I'm against it, because you don't get to set the price. They set the price.
Oh.
It costs money to get something back from them unless it's been there for a long period of time. The payouts are only once a month. So if you're looking for money now and it sells, you don't get it right now. There's a lot of drawbacks outside of the fact that when it sells, they deal with all the stuff, they deal with the authentication. I really like the concept of having the item in my hands and a third-party site authenticating it when it sells. Because if I have a very valuable item and I'm interested in getting the most money for it, you could check to see which sites it's going to sell the most on, because all these sites carry like a slight difference in price. It's the same reason that a shirt will sell for $5 more on eBay than it will on Poshmark, or vice versa. Some platforms just do better with certain brands and certain items. But it's almost like if you have, it's seeming to me that the more, if you have a fancy item, you're best off not sending it to the RealReal unless it is a super exceptional item that you'll get 80% on.
I think most people like me are going to run into a one-off. You're going to occasionally run into something. And so we say, you know, what do we do with it? I'm a little afraid. So you say eBay and take your lumps on returns. I hope they don't Vero me for a Prada. I'll have to check our Vero list. And if not there, I think my best bet is to go to one of the new one, Vestiaire Collective.
Okay, so easy answer. If you don't want to do anything and you just want to keep on trucking, send it to the RealReal. If you want to be complicated and get more of your money for it, I legitimately say cross-list it on some of the really good platforms. I'd say cross-list it on eBay, cross-list on a Vestiaire Collective, because based on this, they'll have 2 million less users right now than the RealReal does, which is not a significant portion. They're all based around the world. They still authenticate things just like the RealReal does. So you have that whole user base. It seems, and if I had to put my money on which of these two companies is going to survive, the RealReal or Vestiaire Collective, I'm honestly going to put my money on Vestiaire because their overhead is lower. All they're doing is they're just making, they're creating the mindset for the buyer that it is a higher end shopping experience. With that higher end shopping experience comes authentication, even if the same thing happens on eBay. The only difference is that they don't have to deal with all of the photographing, all that stuff. They just have to deal with the web hosting. So if you're just a platform like Poshmark or eBay, your major costs are all of the tech things, and then the the payment processing, and then obviously the marketing. Those are probably your big, I could be wrong, and your payroll obviously, but those are your big expenditures. So as long as people know about you and you're currently handing out the concept that you're a very valuable brand that is selling valuable brands, and I think Vestiaire Collective has definitely done that, because that's what I've always associated Tradesy with. So if they're buying Tradesy and they're trying to really grab that same market, I think it is going to kind of go seamlessly, as long as American users go, oh, okay, there's this other thing that that is currently massively trying to expand into the US, and this other site just routes to it now. You know, they're the same thing. We should trust them.
I know that Vestiaire I picked up their name from an article that I sent you that was a lot of, what do you call it, high profile people are writing articles about how their favorite thing they found on Vestiaire. And there was another article on my 5 favorite places to buy luxury goods. And it was by people who were buying things I couldn't afford. But they're all touting that. So they are carefully crafting an image of, gee, if you want to be like the cool kids, you know, buy from us. Well, I don't think I'm going to, I think I'm going to hang on to my Prada jacket for a while. I've gotten attached to it now.
Oh, it fits so well. So for a few more stats, because I took them, so why not run through them? Vestiaire Collective is actively really trying to grow in America. They've been growing 75% year over year for the last several years. God knows what several years is, because they're not a public company, so you can't look this data up like you could with the RealReal. The RealReal is, This is interesting. So on $1.5 billion of gross monetary value. So that's the
B with a
billion.
B.
Yeah, billion. So of $1.5 billion going through their whole system, they're only getting $236 million in revenue out of that. So that means they're pumping a whole bunch of volume through it, but the amount of money that's actually coming back to them that they're making, and this is not net, this is just pure revenue, is 236 million. Because if they're selling a jacket for 10,000 bucks and they take 20% of it, 80% of that GMV is not counted as revenue. Only 20% is actual revenue to the company, and 80%.
Does your 236 million, is it the net that includes cost of running the business? It's just pure in and out minus fees.
Just pure, yeah. That's the amount of money that they actually like handle and deal with. So, so Vestiaire Collective combined with Tradesy this year says that they should go above $1 billion in GMV, but all I can think of is that their operating costs and their revenue on that just has to be better. It has to be better than, I mean, because if we're looking at this, if they did $1.5 billion in GMV and they're getting 236, that's 1/6. That's basically 1/6 of your GMV goes into revenue, which just seems really, really low with all of that overhead. Versus on Vestiaire Collective, if they're taking a straight 20%, that means they're basically getting more. They'd actually be getting more because 1/6 is like 18.5%, 17.5%. So if you're just taking 20% of $1 billion, that leads you to have $200 million of revenue. And then that revenue is not spread over a whole bunch of like stores that are authenticating things and shipping things out to the same level that the Real is. So my money, if both of these are going to exist, and both of them I should say are currently unprofitable, neither of them are actually making money. They're both just taking on a ton of money from venture capital, and the Real actually IPO'd, so everybody's already cashed out. So if one company's going to die right now, it's going to be that one probably.
All right, here's what we're gonna do. I'm up in Colorado, but I'm gonna be back next week, and I'm going to put my little Prada jacket on Vestiaire. I'm gonna do it. I mean, I don't have anything into it, and I'm gonna try it, and then I'll come back on our Wednesday What's Up with Business and kind of keep track of how it went. We'll have a trial.
We could do a fun experiment of cross-listing your dumb, beautiful Prada jacket on all of the sites and seeing what happens. We could do that. We could even throw in some Depop, throw in some Goat, which is, I don't understand the difference between Grailed and Goat. I always think they're the same site, so they should merge just so that I don't have to deal with that anymore.
No, I thought Goat meant greatest of all time. Oh no.
It does. No. It does. There's just another site called Goat. There's a site called Goat and a site called Grailed, and they work very similarly to Tradesy / well, I guess now Vestiaire Collective, in the sense that they're a platform. So what are we talking about today, Sally?
Well, the other day I told you, I was kind of looking for alternatives and different platforms for luxury goods. And I know there's the Real, and I had something I was going to send to the Real, and man, it just seemed like a lot of hassle, and there was a lot of fees for it. And so you mentioned that you knew of some happenings in the news on other platforms.
Ooh, buddy, big stuff. And I should say happenings, but I think what actually happened recently is maybe the acquisition went through. But back in March, there was an acquisition by one company, Vestiaire Collective, which is a French, what'd you say, that resale company, purchasing Tradesy, which is a US based resale company.